Tonight's tactical enhancement is a dry martini. Tonight we're playing Victory at Sea. This is the first trip out for the British. I would suggest we're in the Mediterranean because we are taking on the Italians. They've taken 2 freaking battleships and that's it. 1100 point game. We decided to do straight biffo because we couldn't be stuffed mucking around updating our points values after we picked our fleets and set up, and then remember we're supposed to do a mission. So we've done turn 1, and the fairy swordfish are moving very slowly. They're actually zeros because I haven't assembled my British planes yet. But the Italians got some long-range shots on the Edinburgh class cruiser. Hurt it rather a bit for no right of reply because we're out of range, but we'll be remedying that this turn. We'll check in at the end of turn 2. That tandem of Italian battleships over there is causing me some real trouble. The Edinburgh is crippled already at the end of turn 2. And the other ship's only about 2 points off of the other cruiser here. The Neptune is only 2 points off of being crippled as well. Now I'm hocking 6 dice at those things, and they're hocking 18 dice back at me at the moment. But,
I noticed one ship.
But we will hopefully get some aircraft on them in a little while. We'll see what happens there. Probably it's going to be a short attack run, that is. And we do have a bunch of destroyers and a very nice battleship to go. I have no idea how this is going to pan out. Turn 3, and damage is starting to pile up on the King George. Not a lot of points, but it's a couple of criticals. Nothing serious yet, but you can see how this is going to grow as the 18 fucking points worth of fire land every turn from those bastards. On the other hand, while the Edinburgh is crippled and the Lender class, as the Neptune, is almost crippled, so they're not going to do very well catching up with their torpedoes. These destroyers are motoring on in. The fairy swordfish, well, you don't know if they actually survive getting shot at. They'll be on there on a turn or so. And the good news is they're running out of edge of sea to try and outrun my fleet. So sooner or later it's going to get up close and personal. Righto, my suspiciously Japanese looking fairy swordfish are almost on those ships, but it's a chase. So I've had to get within their AA range just to get able to strike them next turn. And they managed to pip one off with some long-ranged AA gunnery. So I'm down to 3. Plus, this poor lonesome fellow at the back here is probably not going to do shit until something's crippled enough to take out the wounded ship. Meanwhile, my extremely crippled cruisers are even more extremely crippled. The destroyers are doing okay. And this fella here is accruing a bit of damage. Problem is, I've got 10 shots against 18 shots. And unless I get some torpedoes into those big boys, I'm going to lose. So we'll check in at the end of the next turn and hopefully some action will have occurred. At the end of turn 5, I think it is, the destroyers popped off all their torpedoes and actually did a fair bit of damage and a bunch of criticals to those battleships. Not enough to take them out though. The dive bombers somehow managed to fly through a clusterfuck of anti-aircraft fire and then did nothing. 4 or 5 turns worth of chasing those bastards halfway across the ocean and they all bloody missed. So that was disappointing. In the gunnery, look, the King George did a bit of damage. Yeah, probably about what you would actually expect it to do. I've been rolling under the average in the last few turns, but he did all right this turn. But in reply, those 2 battleships have been ganging up on it. We've had an escalation in the engines, and the engines are now at 5 out of 6 for critical damage. They are hurting.
And can I say I've been rolling well on the dice?
Oh, Emilio is the Yahtzee master, and he's been in form in the last turn or 2. I don't know how the hell I'm going to pull a victory out of my bum for this one, but we'll have to keep giving it a go, I think. There's still a few tricks up my sleeve. We'll check in at the end of the next turn. End of turn 6. Right, well, we dropped smoke on the destroyers, and one of them was sunk for his troubles. It's worth noting this is the first ship that's been destroyed all game. That smoke, I like to put a bit of smoke there to show the ships die. You know, oil burning on the water, that sort of thing. But he did his job. He dumped a bunch of torpedoes, did some damage, and then he dropped smoke in order to keep this fella alive while he was immobile for a turn. We did do a damage repair, so he's down to engines 4 instead of 5. Hurt and Puppy. Emilio did not get any damage repair on his ships, but you know, they're not crippled. They're still chugging along. So we've got 2 turns to try and wrap this up, and it's anyone's game still. End of turn 7. Right, well, another destroyer got taken out at close range while dropping smoke. That smoke, however, protected everybody while this fella was doing repairs. And while we were at it, I couldn't quite protect everything with that smoke, so there were some smoke dropped on the gunnery dropped on the Edinburgh that took him out. In theory, I should have turned that thing around and started smoking, actually, because he was never going to get within torpedo range. But there you go, lesson learned. These planes continue to bugger off, having proven themselves useless. And I did get another flight into the flank of one of these ships, but he got taken out by the AA from the other ship, as it turns out. That long-range AA working in tandem is devastating. Somehow he managed to sneak through the local area AA, but you know, his luck ran out. So we're now going into the last turn. We have 1 versus 2 battleships. They've all taken damage. But in the damage repair, we did manage to get the engines down to 3, critical 3. So that ship's as good as it's going to get. 1 more turn. We'll see what happens. So Emilio's just been singing at me in Italian. In the last turn, we managed to section off the enemy fleet pretty well. In reply, they did take out the crippled cruiser. I just threw that in, trying to get some long-range torpedo shots in on that guy, but unfortunately that didn't work. Would have been good if they had, because in the exchanging gunfire, the King George came through reasonably well, and then dumped, 13 points on the other fella. 5 critical potentials, but only 1 of them actually turned into an actual, and just bumped an extra couple of points off. So this battleship here is only 5 points off of being crippled, but the prick snuck through, so I don't get any points for him. Which is a real shame, because in reply, they destroyed these. Now, it's not a great deal of points. It's about a quarter of my fleet, which in the grand scheme of things isn't much if you've crippled a battleship in reply. But, well, the dice weren't with me today.
That's true.
But then again, neither were my tactics. Seems to be a recurring theme in our games recently. Well, gentlemen, what have we learned?
Well, I just want to say from the outset, thank you for bringing the British. This is the first victory for the Italians since I've been playing this particular game. So I've done, I think, a loss against the Japanese, a loss against the Americans, a draw against the Americans, and now a victory against the British.
Oh, is this the first go you've actually won?
Yeah.
Right.
So, and I think tactics didn't work for me the first time because I didn't bunch up my battleships, and there was devastating attacks with torpedoes and dive bombers previously. So learned those lessons to keep the battleships close together, to try concentrate fire, and the AA worked for me against your planes. And
they have great AA, especially against slow planes, which have to sit there for a turn getting shot at before they get in range.
And the light, I guess the light guns combined was a lot of dice, and that definitely hurt your destroyers and definitely hurt your cruisers in the end at close range.
Yeah, and look, I would complain again about you taking 2 fucking good battleships in tandem in a game only barely big enough to take this. It was actually meant to be a 1,000-point game, but we thought, nah, we'll do 1,100.
Yeah.
That was a bad tactical decision right from the outset. But I actually knew what he was taking, and I still chose a multivariate fleet to see what the British would do. And a few observations. Firstly, a light carrier's worth of aircraft won't do shit against 2 Vittorio capital ships. Neither will the cruisers, because they're too damn easy to hit before they get up close. This fellow did, I mean, the dice rolls weren't great, but then again, neither were my tactics. But he, at the end of the day, he did what he was there to do. And he was all right.
21 hits. No, 21 dice, 5 critical. He should have really hurt one of my battleships.
Yeah, I should have done 2 or 3 criticals.
So the dice rolling was really important in this game. I rolled really well for the last 3 turns and did lots of damage with my dice.
Got the initiative for 6 out of 8 turns.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, right? I took the wrong fleet against your fleet, and I knew what I was up against, so that was my own dumb fault. The other thing is that now, if I really wanted to gain the shit out of this, I would have taken another capital ship, the Hood, and the 3 destroyers. But even with the selection that I took, mediocre though it was, I still could have won if I'd had proper tactics. So what I didn't do was use the smoke effectively in order to limit the carnage they could do when they were throwing 18 dice against my 10. I should have just been smoking it up on the way in, just so they couldn't do any damage, then get a point blank range, dump off all my torpedoes. My cruisers would have been in better nick, so I would have had a couple of turns of not getting shot at. And then when we open up, we could open up with everything all at once and coordinated it, which I totally failed to do. So I just got shot at for a whole bunch of turns when I had no good reason to get shot at.
Yeah.
So that's what actually cost us the game at the end of the day.
And also escalation, I think, hurt you as well.
Well, yeah, there was a couple of turns of having to do damage control, but it's worth noting those were turns where I was stopping the twin Vittorios from hitting me with all their guns. So I guess that just reinforces the point that while I wasn't dishing it out in order to cripple your ship, I should have been screening my ships all along with smoke. So there's the lesson. Use tactics, Christopher. That'll help. Right, anything else we've picked up from this game?
Andrew?
Yeah, the carrier.
Yeah, it's the
we
carrier.
came to the conclusion it's a support vessel for a fleet, not a strike carrier. So better just to load it up with fighters.
Yep.
And have your combat air patrol for your fleet.
Now, can you upgrade the planes for that carrier?
Yeah, I mean, we took torpedo bombers, which are crap. If we'd taken dive bombers, we would have had some better prospects. I'd have to have a look at whether you can take dive bombers on the Eagle class, given they were... The actual real-world one was destroyed doing a bunch of Malta runs back in 42. So I'm not sure if it ever got good planes. Would have had probably Spitfires, I would think, because they were carrying Spitfires to Malta. So for air cover, it should be fine. But for an actual strike attack groups, it might be a bit limited. But yeah, and against the fleet which doesn't have any airplanes, it's pretty fucking pointless. But that was an interesting experiment just to see how it would go.
Yeah, it's pretty cheap.
Yeah, well, look, we didn't win, but we didn't get totally creamed either. Lessons learned for next time. On that note, thanks for watching. Feel free to hit like, subscribe, all that sort of thing. We'll try and get some more games of this in. It's been a whole lot of Warhammer lately, but I do like this game. Anyway, that's it. It's a school night. Time to call it a day.